Hey, good evening, Saints fans and Hootats from all over the world. I'm Kyle T. Mosley here with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. What's going on, Bob?
Evening, Mr. Mosley. Evening, NFL fans. We are less than 2 days away from Christmas in April. So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you've been paying attention to your favorite writers. Yours truly and the other two outstanding gentlemen on my panel. Mike Detillier, man, I've been a fan of you for years, and I want to thank you for the support that you've given to this young show. And I know you've been having some sleepless nights, my friend, as always this time of year. I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, I appreciate it, but listen, I don't let my money or myself go to bed restless. Listen, I got issues with the postal system, but man, I don't let it eat away at me to take away my sleep. So, and hopefully we got most of that resolved. We still have some issues with some magazines, but it's the first time in 36 years we've ever had this. Normally, this wasn't an issue at all, but that's the state of the postal system today. And it's not the post offices, it's these transit centers that have become the wild, wild west of shipping.
Wow.
And listen, you hear horror stories about stuff getting missing. So,
right.
Listen, that for me, I'm so used to it. Not the postal part, but so used to the other stuff. I done been to the clam bakes before. It's all good.
Well, look, I am happy that you're on with us. If you guys do not know this gentleman, that's Mike Detillier, the NFL draft guru for many of years, the insider in Saints, knowing what's the ins and outs of what's happening. But he's also our friend. And guys, we're going to open it up this evening for you guys to have any comments or questions that you would like to have for Mike. So when I tell you guys, listen up, and I'll open up and I'll send you the link, go ahead and you can be able to come onto the show and be able to talk to Mike and ask some questions about what's going on with the Saints in the NFL draft coming up on Thursday. Well, Mike, man, let's jump right into it. The Saints have the number 28 spot. A lot of people have been debating amongst themselves to say 28 is not where the Saints are going to stay. What's your thoughts?
Well, I do know who the hyper aggressive coach is. So, if you got your money, you betting on the fact that he's going to trade up. They did trade back in 2006. Wasn't the first round pick, but it was the second round pick. And so, man, if you got betting money, I would bet on the fact they'll trade up. 28's a long run. And I never forget Jim Finks telling me this. Either you go to the draft, meaning trading up, or the draft comes to you. So Sean's not one to like to have the draft come to him. And I think he would like to move up. And there's a huge hole at corner. And the fear is maybe the guys that won't be there. Because those first four guys are a cut above the others. Now, I do think there'll be 5, maybe 6 corners go. You might have one sneak late in the first round.
Okay.
The 5th. But the other 5, I think, will go in the second round.
Yeah.
But
well, who are those guys?
Distinction between those first 4. And I think that's where he would like to go.
All right. Well, share with us those top 4 guys that you have and you think the Saints are looking at as well.
Well, forget about Patrick Surratt. You can't move up that high to get him. Same thing with J.C. Horn. If Caleb Farley was a healthy player, which he's not, you wouldn't have a shot at him either. But Caleb's coming off of back surgery. He had an ACL injury. And that's 2 back injuries and 2 surgeries he's had. Okay. I think anyone who's had a back injury knows you can get better, but it's always there. And come in. This isn't Al Bundy and United Polk High School. Okay. This is the NFL. It's a physical game.
Yeah.
I would have to get clearance from my medical people to say, you know what, he's good to go. We're going to be fine with it. Sean's did this before. Marshawn Lattimore on some people's boards was red flagged, hamstring. Yep. Okay. Has it been an issue with the Saints? Okay, it hasn't. So my thing with it is, man, if you could get that type guy and he falls to 20, 21, 22, and you can make a little maneuver up, great. And the other guy is Greg Newsome II from Northwestern. I wrote an article the second week in January. I never got so many people ask me, who is Greg Newsome? Never saw him. And these are the same people writing articles about Newsome today. My thing is, okay, you did, like Columbus discovered America. I saw Greg at IMG Academy. Okay, he was a kid that grew up right outside Chicago, goes to IMG. He was a really good. Now he was a real skinny guy back then. Man, listen, his second number wasn't a 7; it was a 6. I mean, he was real skinny. Goes back to Northwestern, been a really good player there. Has only given up 1 touchdown in 2 years.
Wow.
He's had little injuries here and there too, but while he's filling into that body, which I think he'll physically get bigger. But those are the 4 guys up on that board. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it stayed that way with me. I'll be honest. Last year at this time, had you asked me, tell me the cover cornerback that would be a top 15 pick, I would not have said J.C. Horn. And I don't think anybody else would.
What made the difference?
Tyson Campbell from Georgia.
Okay.
I saw Tyson at American Enterprise. Same high school Patrick Surratt went to. Mm-hmm. They were both in the secondary, coached by the dad. Coached by Patrick Surratt. Man, I'm getting old in this business. I covered Pat. He was a basketball player at Edna Carr. They won a state championship with Patrick Surratt. And so I would have bet a lot of money that it was Tyson, that he would have got in there. And he just never made that move up. But athletically, he may be the most talented of the group. If you're just looking at pure athlete, size, speed, recovery ability. But there are parts of his game that I can see. He doesn't play with a lot of confidence at times. He is a bit of a hit and a miss guy. You didn't throw the ball towards Stokes' side of the field. You threw it toward Tyson. Right. And he was the more talented guy. But there's a coach that's always Dr. Phil, that I can solve his issues. I can solve it. But, I think Tyson's a guy that could sneak in there late because, supply and demand.
Right.
At that cornerback position. But let me tell you, athletically, and when you walk up to him, you was like, wow, that's how I want a corner built, just like him. He's long-armed, he's fast, he's quick in the hips. The one thing about it, I'd have to stand up and show you, but one of the things he does is when he gets in that press coverage, he stays with that receiver, but never looks back at the ball quick enough. That's how he gets beat. So he's staring at that receiver's belly because he doesn't want to get a double move on him. Staring at the belly. All of a sudden, the receiver throws the hand out and makes the catch. So what he's got to get a little bit better at, and listen, we sent a man to the moon, so we can teach him a little bit better on when to get his head turned around. That's a flaw in his game. And I'd love to see him play with a little bit more confidence. So those are the top 5, but I think there's a distinction between 4 and 5 here with Newsome or Farley and Tyson Campbell, who I think the world of, man, a really good guy. He works hard at his craft and everything. It's just, man, when you play that position, you got to get amnesia. You can't let one bad play affect the next. And I sort of see it in him. Can that be coached out of him? I don't know. But I do know one thing. Ed Reed told me this years ago. Man, if you don't play with confidence, they go after you. Like you stole money from them when you was a little kid. They go after you. They don't care about your credentials, what you did in high school, college. They go on after you. And so you got to play with that confidence. But, man, Tyson, Eric Stokes, Asante Samuel, man, Kelvin Joseph, who, man, I saw play a ton of football here in Louisiana. Didn't quite hit the stride at LSU, but played at Kentucky. Man, he looked like a great player there. Now, big, lengthy guy. And then certainly Elijah Molden is involved with that also. There's a lot of corners in this draft. But watch how quickly they come off the board. 4 to 5 in round 1, and then 5 to 10 in the second round. They're going to peel off quickly. Why? The game's change. You got to match up. And I can't just have 2 corners. I can't have 3. I got to have 4. I got to have 4 corners. And everybody on their needs, if you ask guys that run teams in the NFL, cornerback is one of the 3 on everybody you ask. Cornerback is there. They looking for depth, or they looking for a starter.
Well, here's a question or a thought. Anthony says he believes the Saints are going to trade up between 15 to 20 to be able to get their guy. Do you think that's the sweet spot for the Saints with the draft capital that they have?
I would think I would lengthen that a little bit from, say, like 15 to 22. Okay. Somewhere in that range. If you're going to trade, that's where you got to go. And I think the trade guy would be Farley, because I'm sure on their board, he's a top 10 pick. And healthy, he probably would have been a top 10, 11, 12 pick if he was healthy, because they'd all battle it out. It would be him and Surratt and JC. They'd battle it out for 1, 2, 3. But they also have to have a doctor say, I'm good with it. I'm good with it, coach. I know you want him, but let me tell you the risk involved. Yeah. That. And sometimes you got hard-headed coaches that don't want to listen. But listen, it wouldn't be the first time the Saints have picked a player that has had some injury issues. And even in round 1, even in round 1, that was question marks about Ramczyk a little bit, because he got nicked up. A lot of question marks about Lattimore, because I'm convinced this. I've known John Robinson a long time. He was an assistant coach at Nicholls State University, got into scouting. Now he's a GM of the Tennessee Titans. All things been square. He ain't getting to the Saints. They're not picking Davis. They picking Marshawn Lattimore. And they were afraid of the hamstring issues being a major issue, which really it hasn't been at all.
Okay. Mike, I watch a lot of we get a lot of Big Ten football up here, so I've watched Newsome for a while, and I'm like you, I'm a big fan. But going back to what you said about Caleb and his injury issues, do you believe, and Coach Payton alluded to this the other day, the challenges of the pandemic the last couple of years, you haven't been able to get your own medical staff to get the checks on these guys that you've been able to in the past. You've already said that that's why Caleb is going to drop. But if the Saints have an opportunity to get him, as well as Coach, is he going to overlook that back issue, or is he going to pull that trigger?
I think if he has a chance, he'd pull that trigger. And let me tell you something about medical. And I know you're breaking some HIPAA laws, but that information comes out, because you know where you can go to? His agent. Right. Drew Rosenhaus. And send you that, because he's got the clearance from the player. Hey, listen, I'm your agent, give me autonomy that I can send that out to a team. And just look who his agent is. Drew Rosenhaus. Listen, ain't nobody more connected than Drew. Man, Drew send everybody everything. You get emails, and Drew's really good at it. He'll send you emails or a text on a player that he's representing. And it's not that he's negative about another guy, but he's not positive about him either. He is positive about his guy. And listen, doing this for this long, I get it. I understand that's your job. Yeah. Because if you can move that guy from a 20s pick into a teens pick, you've made him some good money. Not what it used to be, right? But it's still good money. And you're setting him up for the second contract, which is really the big deal in today's NFL. People talk about, these rookies get all this money. Used to, but not anymore. Man, they all looking for that second contract. That's where you cash in. So you go from winning the Louisiana lottery to winning the Powerball. There's a difference. You know, cash that Louisiana lottery ticket and cash that Powerball one and see which one you get more of. I can tell you right now, it's that Powerball, and that's what they're all shooting for.
Awesome. That's some good stuff. I did read that Rosenhaus said that his doctors did give him clearance, Farley, about that disc injury that he had. So I think that's good press for him, right? To be able to say, you know, you got medical clearance. But when it comes to
Kyle, not to interrupt you, but you know what this reminds me of? I seen it on Seinfeld one time. You know, when he would go see the guy that was playing like he was Johnny Cochran, the lawyer.
Yeah, yeah.
And Kramer would go there and let him go see my doctor. You know, okay, that doctor's not going to say anything negative about that. Come on. That, you know, so I think you got to do your due diligence here as a team if you're considering Farley, because, again, I know about more middle-aged and older people with back injuries than younger people, and how manageable all that is with that player. But I did see him afterwards run a sub 4.3 40-yard dash. I mean, that dude's, I mean, to see him, he is a big man corner. He ain't no small corner. He's not 5'10", and he ain't 185 pounds. He is a big man corner. And just the way he's built, man, especially in the upper body. And I like to see that in a corner because you know why? You got all these king-size receivers today. So the first thing you do is, okay, if I'm going to play press coverage, I'm getting my hands on him. But that big guy, you're going up against a guy like Michael Thomas or Chase Claypool or whoever, man, they're 6'4", 230 pounds.
Right.
As soon as you put that arm out to try to get your arm to delay them, they batten that away. A little bitty corner, he might be feisty, you know, like a little gnat at a picnic. You know, you keep swatting. But that big guy is a different story. You look at all the corners. If it's Surratt, if it's JC, if it's Caleb, if it's Newsome, it's Tyson Campbell. All of them in that 5'11" to 6'1" range. Man, that's good size today. You're never going to find a 6'4" corner, okay? But, you know, you look on the back end, you see some of those guys that from a physical standpoint can match up against a king-size receiver. And that, the difference between last year's drafted receiver, which was the best I ever did, and it was 35 years last year, best I ever did. That was a speed class last year. They had dudes that can run. Now, this year, yeah, they got guys that can run. But what they have this year, more size, more length. I can't get my corners to get too much bigger, okay?
Right.
They're a certain size, and I can't have a 6'4" corner. You know, that ain't working. Bobby Taylor did that. I think he was the last, and Sherman was a big corner. But there's not a lot of those guys walking the earth that can match up against that big receiver. And that's what makes this class, especially on defense, it's the best class, as that corner, where you got so many guys. And I think 7-on-7 has changed the world in the standpoint of, okay, I've played this X amount of games in high school, but look how many games they played 7-on-7 in the spring and the summer. They played a ton of games. So you get used to it and what you can get away with, what you can't. I see in this group, though, man, there's a lot of grabbers. You know, they pull and tug, you know, at the back of the jerseys a lot. You're not going to be able to get away with that all the time in the NFL. I mean, they're going to call that. JC's great at it because, you know, you watch JC play and he gets his hand on that corner. He tries to redirect him. And as soon as that guy makes a little turn on move, that he stretches that jersey out, they can put two dudes in that jersey by the end of the game. I mean, he knows how to do it real well. And he gets close and he kind of pulls and tugs on that jersey. And, man, he stretches that out pretty good. You do that in the NFL, they're going to catch you.
You're going to get flagged.
You know what?
Right.
I saw Newsome at Northwestern sort of do that too. He's a little bit grabby.
He is.
Players. And so is Tyson Campbell. If he's close, and he thinks you're gonna beat him with a double move, there it goes. And sometimes you get called, sometimes you don't. And I remember Jackrabbit telling Bobby and I this. He was like, man, yeah, I get called for a lot of them interference calls, but I just want to see how far the referee let me go with it. and you think about it, a lot of those calls he was getting was early in the game, and he was pulling and tugging, and he just sort of wants to test you on how far you will let him go before you throw that flag. Okay, I get it now. I kind of see where we're going with this. And coming out of college, they got a lot of guys like that. They'll test you, especially LSU corners, Alabama, Georgia corners. Come on, every day in practice, can you imagine getting on that field? If you were a cornerback at LSU and you in line and said, okay, this is who we got. We got Jamar Chase. We got Justin Jefferson. We got Terrence Marshall Jr. We got Racing McMath. Or you had Alabama and you got Henry Ruggs, Judy, Waddle, and Devontae. It's like, what? Hey, rookie. Hey, let the freshman go up against that dude. I don't want to be embarrassed. No, you test it every day. And so you sort of try to get a little advantage, if you know what I mean.
Okay, Mike, we got another question. What's your thoughts about Asante Samuel Jr.?
Man, I like him. He's a feisty little guy. He's smart. He's got good coverage skills. His footwork is really good in the reverse position. He's going to lose some battles, okay, against bigger receivers. Come on. At his size, he's not going to win all of them. But you know who he reminds me a little bit of is Janoris. It's Janoris Jenkins.
A younger Janoris Jenkins, a younger Jackrabbit.
He's similar size. He's got better speed than Jackrabbit does.
Wow.
But not by much, but he's a little bit faster. But he's a technician, and he's a guy that wants to push the envelope on you. Man, you can see he's talking. He's talking to you. And he wants to get in your head. Well, he fit perfect with the Saints. Perfect. When you got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. But he's a really good technician. In another draft class, I'd probably put him in round 1. But in this one, because it is pretty thick, I put him in round 2. But, man, as far as technique, footwork, ball skills, high level. Now, he's going to get downgraded because of all the corners, he's probably the smallest and the shortest of the bunch. And so when you got the Greeks figured this out years ago. If you got a big man talented and a small man talented, give me the big dude.
Always.
They figured that out thousands of years ago. So nothing against Asante. And I'd love to have him on my team because I think he's the type of guy, as far as run support, he's not the greatest open field tackler, but he knows how to get you down. You know why? He low bridge you. And he goes real low and he kind of tumbles you. It reminded me a little bit of Clyde when he was pass protection at LSU. Come on, Clyde's 5'7". Come on, I ain't hitting nobody high. That dude run over me. But one of the things Clyde would do was get low and he kind of wheelbarrow you, catch you, come right over the top. Watch Asante's out into the open field, especially in run support. He gets out there. Come on, if you go high on a running back, he's dragging you another 10 yards. But I go low on you, you got to do a couple things. Either you got to jump over me or I got you, because I can kind of tumble you and make that tackle. Listen, they don't give you nothing extra for being a physical tackler.
Right.
They don't pay you no more for that. They just want you down in the NFL. But I like Asante a lot. And I really like him in the second round.
Yeah. What Deion Sanders would always say, that those are business decisions, right? Go ahead,
Everything is business. Everything on draft day is strictly business and power. You got to understand that who has the chalk in their hand at the end? Is it the coach? Is it the general manager? There's a couple owners in this league that get involved. Not as many as it used to be, but there are some that still get involved, like the one in Washington. He wanted Dwayne Haskins because he went to high school with his son. Okay. And he put that in the ear. Hey, that's who I want. You can have all the boards you want. I'm the billionaire owner. That's who I say. Now, you always got geniuses in the world that'll tell you, oh, well, I tell that owner, man, I'm in charge here. Yeah, tell him that. And you unemployed.
Yeah.
You ain't telling you no billionaire owner who he's not picking. You say, yes, sir, that's who I'll pick. The Saints had one like that early on with John Meekum. And I can tell you from coaches, guys that ran the team, told me, a lot of times, boards up, John would come in, hey, I want this guy, I want that guy, I want this guy. That's what I want. And that's who they picked. It was no discussion. It was, yes, sir, Mr. Meekum, that's what we're going to pick. Now, again, Tom didn't know enough to get involved, in that sort of thing. And certainly Miss Gail, she's not going to get involved either. And so we all know who's got chalk in his hand, as Sean Payton. You can debate that all you want, but how this is set up for the Saints is that the scouts do the board and they set it up. And Jeff Ireland gets it, and they set it up north-south, east-west. They give it to Mickey and Sean. They redo the board on the people that they think will fit better for them, and maybe they've got some information maybe that scout didn't have. And so they redo the board. And we've heard it from numerous people that have worked with them. Once you hand it over to them, that board looks different because now they're looking for a certain type player at that point.
All right, Bob.
And speaking of draft boards, and what I want to piggyback something that you said about Asante. If those top 4 cornerbacks are gone, or if the Saints can't move up to get any of the 4, Mike, where do you see them going? Do you see them dipping into the second tier and Asante and Eric Stokes, Tyson Campbell, or are they going to shift directions and maybe fill another need at linebacker, receiver, defensive line with the best player available at that stage?
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you heard Sean talk about linebacker?
No.
Listen, this offseason, you know what I've heard him talk about as far as drafts concerned? Cornerbacks. I'll give you a little tip. He's talked about offensive linemen.
He has.
Now people have said, what? You got to be kidding. No, he's sort of looking into the looking glass. That, man, we got some guys making a lot of money here. I might have to move on. So he's looking at that, and he's talked about tight end. That's the other. And the fourth one, and it was just a player. But when Dan Patrick asked him about, tell me a quarterback that you like that reminds me of you, he didn't hesitate 1 second. Ian Book from Notre Dame. Okay, he's not saying that unless he's watched a lot of Ian Book. Okay, He didn't pull that from the sky. I'm just telling you, Sean is a little bit like Coach O, okay? But I know Bebe a lot better because we grew up together.
Yeah.
He don't write the story for you. He does not do the show for you. But he drops enough breadcrumbs that if you follow the trail, you know kind of where he's going with all this. But he's talked about corner. He's talked about offensive line. He's talked about tight end. He has not mentioned one word about linebacker. He's not mentioned one word about defensive tackle. He's not said one word about depth at running back. He hasn't said anything about receiver. Nothing. So, in essence, he's telling you his story.
What do you want?
He's telling you his story.
Right.
About, now, again, he doesn't have to tell you everything. And there may be a guy at receiver or linebacker that he really likes, but he didn't expect he'd be there. And so you get a chance to pick him. But it's funny how some coaches leave the breadcrumbs. And Mike Ditka was probably the best at it, in that Mike would not only give you a hint, Mike could basically write your story.
Yeah.
He didn't make any bones about Neoli. That's who he wanted. He didn't make any bones about Kyle Turley. That's who he wanted. Ricky Williams. When we questioned him days before the draft, are you trying to maybe trade for Marshall Faulk? Marshall Faulk, we got a guy like that already on this team. And Tony, what? And there's only one Marshall Faulk in this league. He was telling you, I'm going to do everything I can to get Ricky Williams. So in essence, he's tipping you off on what he will do. And Mike, again, he wrote the story for you. Now, Sean doesn't do that, but he leads you down that certain road of kind of where he's looking and what he's thinking about, because for him to answer those questions, it's not a hesitation.
Right.
It's real quick. Bang. He answers it. It's not like, we had Hank Stram with WWL for years. He asked Hank a question, and you forgot what you asked him by the time he finished. Hank would swirl you and swirl you and swirl you. And I was like, man, what did I ask him? You sort of forgot. And that's how some coaches are. They don't tell you anything. They kind of wheel you around. Now, Hank was retired at that point, and so he told you a lot of stories behind the scenes, what he was thinking, why he picked that player. He told us the story about Eldridge Dickey in the late 60s. He was going to pick him, and he was at Tennessee State. He broke all these records, and they all in there and said, Hank, are you going to pick a black quarterback in round one? And Hank was, listen, I don't care if he's from Mars, Saturn, Jupiter. He can play. And we're going to pick him in round one if he's still there. And he said, man, I looked on that board and I looked and I looked and I looked. Ain't nobody going to pick that. Ain't nobody going to pick Dickey. Who picks him? Al Davis.
Al Davis. Al Davis got him.
And then Al brings him to camp because he also picked Kenny Stabler. And he had LaMonica and he had Blanda. And his deal was, Eldridge, you got to play receiver. And Hank said basically it broke him because he had played quarterback all his life. And now all of a sudden you're telling him you got to play receiver. And Hank would talk about that. That was going to be my successor to Lenny Dawson. It was going to be Eldridge Dickey. And he said, it broke him as a player, that he never was quite the same after they moved him to receiver. And even though some teams, when he got cut, wanted to play him at quarterback, it's a different world today. But we're talking about the 60s. So that's a totally different outlook of players. Hank told me the story about Willie Lanier. That people said, where are you going to play Willie Lanier? Willie had played nose guard, fullback, outside linebacker, defensive end. Hank's like, nope, he's playing middle linebacker for me. He said, I had a coach on my team tell me, Coach, you think Willie Lanier can handle those responsibilities of being a middle linebacker? Hank said, why not? He's the smartest guy they have on the team. He's a really smart guy. Why can't he handle it? And he said, look how great Willie Lanier was with the Chiefs. And so Hank would tell you he was trying to break some of those stereotypes that were out there about certain players. And he said, but listen, they got old, and they still got old school guys in this business, still got them, that you can't break them of certain looks, habits. You got some people complain because some guys opt out. Okay, you telling me Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater aren't great players just because they opted out? What was Slater and Penei Sewell supposed to do? Okay, the Big Ten and the Pac-12 both say we're not playing this year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I concentrate on the draft. So 4 weeks later, hey, we changed our mind. Y'all come back and play. Man, my thing is for what? For you to get rich? Man, none of that. And for Jamar, where was he going to go? If Jamar gets hurt, he goes down. But he couldn't have moved himself any farther up than where he's at.
Yeah.
You got to understand, but they got old school thinking across the board.
All right. So, guys, if you want to join in, I'm about to put the link. You can be able to come on the air and ask a question of Mike. And, I think you were talking about the second round with me, and we were chatting about that, Bob. What's going to happen in the second round? Let's say the Saints stay pat. They stay at 28. Somebody slides down the board. Let's say they are able to get Farley at 28. I'm just hypothetical. And, I doubt that will happen. Do the Saints go offensive line, like you said, like a guy like Leatherwood, or do they look at someone else, or do they go have another cornerback who may be on the board? What's your thoughts there? What's the strategy, second round, third round?
Which one of us, Kyle?
Oh, that's for you, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, for me?
Yes.
I would try to find me a guy that can play tackle guard. I just think the problem has been I found an inside player. It's difficult to find me that kind of backup guy that can play tackle, especially left tackle. So don't rule out linemen, because Sean is telling you he's thinking about that, man. And his comments, man, he got a lot of depth along the offensive line, much better than other years. He's sort of leading you down that path of that would be the case. So is it a Dillard Rance from North Dakota State that could possibly be there? That's in the realm, because he's played tackle, but he also could play guard. I just think it's going to be a versatile guy that can play two positions.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that, man, and if it's an offensive lineman, I'm going to blame this all on Zach Strief. Okay, for the last couple of years, he's been working with me on draft day. But if he's in there trying to influence these guys and picking a lineman, I'm going to blame it all on him. But it's funny that I think that that's a position most people wouldn't have maybe guessed. But Sean sort of let the cat out the bag with it, He let the cat out the bag with that particular spot. And are you comfortable at tight end with what they have? Okay, I think Troutman could end up being a really good player.
Yeah.
But my thought is, if the right tight end is there, I take a look at that too. And one of the guys, and not to let but the kid from Notre Dame, Tommy Tremble.
I like him. What about you, Bob?
You know why? He's a great blocker today. He walks in. He is he's like a big tackle. And you look at him, he's got a butt about this big, and he's a wide body tackle just because of the way his frame is. He got better catching the ball this year. And, his route running skills improved. But you line up the Notre Dame offensive line, and Nick Saban made the comment, man, okay, everybody's saying we got to play nickel and dime against Notre Dame. And he said, what they do, they come out with 3 tight ends. Okay, I'm going to have a 185-pound cornerback trying to guard this 6'6", 265-pound tight end. It ain't working, just not working. I know they've spent some time on Tommy from Notre Dame. I'll just put it to you that way. They've spent a lot of time on him, and he's a big man who you have a vision for already. He's a good inline blocker. He's a big target in the red zone, okay? There ain't a lot of guys matching up with him size-wise. He is a big man, and he's gotten better as a route runner. So I'd keep that in mind.
Okay. We have
coming off of the board.
Let's see. Donald, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good, good. You have a question for Mike?
Well, first of all, Mike, when it comes to this NFL draft stuff, you are the best at it, man.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you know what? I don't need a draft book because I'm believe everything you say, okay? So you good. So I got a question, though. What if they don't go corner? What if they're going to go linebacker? What about nose tackle in the first round?
I only have one defensive tackle as a first-round pick, defensive tackle, and that's Christian Barmore. I know a lot about him. I saw him in high school. But my good friend Pete Jenkins coached him at Alabama. Pete goes in there, and old Papa Pete, he's almost 80 years old, and he's hussing and cussing at them young guys. But he's teaching them technique. He's teaching. And so he told me in the summer, after the first couple, man, I got a guy here at Alabama. You got to take a look at Mike. I said, Christian. He said, yeah. He said, he's really good, really good. But he said, I got to stay on his butt. First couple games, he writes me a text. Man, they better start jumping Barmore. You got to make some plays. By midseason, he was like, hey, what about my guy? He was making plays. From midseason on to the end, there wasn't a better defensive tackle in college football than Barmore. He wasn't good. He was dominant up front. So I'm setting up the board, and I almost had him going to Cleveland, but I kind of pulled that. Then all of a sudden I get down to the last pick. Baltimore's still there. And I put him going to Tampa. Man, listen, Ryan Nielsen is very good friends with Pete Jenkins. I'm going to tell you that now. He considers Coach O and Pete Jenkins his mentor. There's a little connection there that you know a lot about Christian Barmore. And I'm just telling you, from midseason on to the final game, national, and you watch that national championship game, he was throwing guys around. I mean, kind of forklifting them, taking them, get underneath them, wow, here, wow, there. Yeah. And he was getting inside. And it was like, man, I can't outrun that 305-pound guy. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Barmore, I would have a lot of interest in Barmore. If the corner or the right linebacker is not there, I'd have no issue with Barmore. Now, I wouldn't pick another defensive tackle. I wouldn't. Right. Those other guys are second, third, fourth round picks, the top guys. Right. Either they can stop the run or they can rush the quarterback, but they can't do both.
All right.
I love Barmore.
All right, Donald. Thank you very much for your question. Donald. Hold on. Let's see. We got one more. Hey, Jerry, what's your question? How you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Mr. Kyle Mosley and Mr. Bob Rose and Mr. Mike Detillier?
Hey.
How you doing, Jerry, my friend? All right. What's your question for us?
I'm doing great. Doing great. But I got a question for Mr. Mike Detillier. First of all, Mr. Mike Detillier, I'm a huge fan of your work. I watch you on WWL and listen to you on WWL radio. Dude, you are the guru of the New Orleans Saints when it comes to like looking at players and looking at this player and that player. Big ups to you, man. Kudos to you, brother.
Thanks a lot. It's a lot of time. Sometimes I'm blurry-eyed and I wake up 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching film and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Man, I shouldn't be doing this, you know. And then I hear Gil Brandt, you know, Gil's in his 80s, still doing that. So I'm like, man, you know, I feel like a young cat if Gil's still doing this in his 80s. But thank you.
That's a blessing right there. Not a problem. But I got a question for you, Mr. Mike Detillier. In the 28th pick of this year's draft, would you rather go cornerback or linebacker for the New Orleans Saints? My question to you. I would rather go
corner, but it would depend on who's available. I would rather go corner because I don't know if there's anything thinner than paper, maybe air, but that's what you got, you know, because you got Lattimore, who's probably looking at a suspension if it's 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
You got a 30-something-year-old Patrick Robinson who he didn't see the field much last year.
That's Bob's best friend.
Oh.
And my thing is, PJ, I like PJ as the dime safety. He's found that niche. That he does that really well. But you got no depth at all. So the way I look at it, man, you're going to have to bring in numbers at corner. It's not just one pick, not just one free agent. Man, after this is all over, they got to get some veteran corners in here if you don't pick them in the draft. So I would rather go corner, but it would depend on who that corner is if I stay at 28. But if I know Sean, I think he feels like maybe I can't get that guy I want at 28, and I may have to peel myself up earlier to get it.
All right, good question.
I got you, Mr. Mike. Yeah, well, if it was me, Mr. Mike Detillier, I may have to agree with you on that. But I'm thinking the other side about linebacker. But you're right at cornerback because the way I look at it, I'm looking at either Asante Samuel Jr. or J.C. Horn or Patrick Surratt Jr. or that guy that they was talking about. What's that boy name? They just talked about him. Either Newsom or Fairley.
Okay.
Farley, that's the one.
Okay.
Caleb Farley.
Patrick Surratt and J.C. Horn, by the time the Saints would pick at 28, they en route to the next city. they en route to the city that they going to. Them guys is gone. I mean, they done left. It's like Elvis. They left the building. They out of here at that point. And I would not be surprised if you stayed at 28, all four are gone. So now what you do at that point? Because that would mean that probably one of the linebackers would have fallen to you. If it's Zaven Collins from Tulsa, if it's Jeremiah Owusu from Notre Dame. Now, you talk about a dude who's small, man, it's Jeremiah. You talk about a playmaker. Because Jeremiah, he got a waist like the size of a runway model. He got a waist that's about this big. But man, can he run? But he can cover. And I think it's the one position in my 36 years that's changed the most. Because when I first started doing it, you were looking at 3-4 outside linebackers, guys that could rush the quarterback.
Right.
And the inside guys with these big thumpers stop the run. And if I see a big 250-pound dude playing middle linebacker, I'll deal his eye, right? Yeah, you can stop the run. Wait till I throw the football next time. I know exactly where I'm going. I'm throwing it right at you because I don't think you can cover my tight end or my running back.
Right.
So all these linebackers today, don't they sort of all look like big, strong safeties?
Yeah, hybrid, right?
Yeah, it's a hybrid. Now, listen, I got in trouble. I wrote that about a guy 5 years ago. He got upset with me about that. I wrote he was a hybrid player. Now, he apologized, and he had told me, man, hybrid made me a lot of money in this league. Okay, so, but he thought that was a knock. But in essence, I could see kind of how the world was changing. Zaven is different because here's a 250-pound guy. And what he does best, coverage. You watch Zaven Collins, man, he's smooth in coverage. Man, his backpedal techniques, how he can eye the ball. He eyes that receiver or that running back. Does a really nice job. And he can run step for step with him. And that's not a lot of guys like that. Because I know one thing with Michael Parsons. He's a put it in forward, I'm getting up the field. Because that's Mike's deal. And that's what I would do with him. My thing is, listen, rush the quarterback. Get after the guy.
What about Jamin Davis?
What's that?
What about Jamin Davis? I love him. That's one of my guys.
Man, Kyle, I understand if you watch 1 year tape on him, why you would like him. But what happened to him the years before? My thing is that all of a sudden,
a lack of production, right?
Yeah, he was. Now again, he wasn't this super highly recruited player. And sometimes people evolve, football wise. I thought he played really well last year, and I gave him a second-round pick grade. Athletically, he's a first-round pick guy. So now you got to explain if I'm in that room, okay, he's got all that talent, but he was only a productive 1 year. What happened in between here? What happened there? Kind of give me an explanation. When I saw him early in his career, he seemed to be hesitant, almost as though he's thinking, man, should I do? Now, last year, he was much more reactive to a play. But when you watched him earlier in his career, he kind of tippy-tapped them feet, just for a second, and then would react. There was a little hesitation in his game. Now, a lot of times coaches will tell you, hey, listen, read the play. Don't make that initial hard move up the field. Now, I don't know because I'm not in the huddle with him, but there was some hesitation in his game. You talk about a guy that can run. Man, Jamin Davis can run, and he can cover, and he's got some upside. The thing about it is, where do you get him? Because legitimately, I got 24 first-round pick guys, okay? And a guy like Davis would be in that section from 25 to like 38. And the separation's like this. Everybody's grade is real close. Yeah. So he's an interesting player, though, Kyle, really is. And he's a guy with a lot of upside to his game. He was a totally different player as a junior than he was as a sophomore. I can say that because you can see it. He was a much more quick reactive, get to the ball, get in reverse. I didn't see that early in his career. Maybe it just all clicked for him at a certain time. And who I'll make that comparison is Debo Jones. Debo was like that a little bit at LSU. that was a little bit of hesitation in his play. And then as he really came on his last year at LSU, where he played great. And, Debo's thing was, man, I just didn't have a lot of playing time. So I didn't want to make a mistake and then to yank you, off the field because, why'd you make that bad move? Coach, I'm trying to make a play. So there's a lot involved with it, but I'm like you. I would have no issue picking him late in round 1. Really wouldn't, because I know one thing. That guy, if he is going to get better, he is a star player somewhere along the line. That may not be year 1 or 2. It may take him a little while. And I think similar to Demario Davis, while Demario, he wasn't a great player early in his career, but he is today.
Yeah.
And that's unusual for an NFL player. You don't normally see that. Normally a linebacker that's an instinctive position. Normally you see it right off the bat. He makes the impact. For Demario, it came later.
Yeah.
It came later in his career. And that goes to show you why you can't profile that player. Okay. And I think that's where you make mistakes. That, maybe he just doesn't know. And so what you see is a player that has got some really big time skills, but how quickly can he come around? And I think for Sean, he's always worried about winning today. Come on, that's no ifs, ands, buts, and maybes about that. He's worried about winning today. But he's the type of guy. Wouldn't he be? Now I wouldn't want to see this because I know Levante David's getting up in age. Okay, Tampa pick him. They don't have an obvious need,
right?
And they can say, you know what, that guy down the road can take a place of somebody getting paid a lot of money. And I don't have to pay him. I can pay him football minimum wage for 4 years before I pick up that 5th-year option or not.
Look, I will say this, Mike, and a lot of NFL analysts say, oh, look at this guy's height, jump, and all this other stuff. I look at how he covers the football field, sideline to sideline, right? How he kind of mirrors Quan Alexander a little bit. Another guy I'm high on is Jabril Cox. I'm not sure how he did on his pro day. I saw some of the measurables, but did you see anything on tape for Cox? I know he's been in LSU for only 1 year, coming from what, North Dakota State.
Yeah.
Do you believe this is a guy that's high second round or mid-second round, or did he do enough today to propel him into the first round?
Okay, I'll fess up. His last year at North Dakota State, I thought he was coming out early. And so I scouted him, went through tape after tape after tape, and better yet, Nicholls State, which is right up the road from me, played North Dakota State in the playoff series. So I got to see a lot of Jabril Cox. I thought he was coming out that year. I gave him a 3rd-round pick grade. They didn't use him a ton in coverage. He was up on the line of scrimmage, get up the field, rush the quarterback, or be that influencer off the edge. So he comes to LSU. That's not the defense they're playing. So he becomes the cover guy. And again, he's got a waist that's this big. You look at him, he's like, you play linebacker? No, he can run. And east-west, but it's his ability to put that thing in reverse. And he tags the ball quickly.
Mm-hmm. Here's
the difference, the big difference, tackling. At North Dakota State, he was a high tackler. Always came up from like here on up. You can get away with that there. He tried that in the SEC. They carted him for a little bit. He was like in the back. He was in the wheelbarrow. Come on, them running backs are carting you. And so one of the things you're going to have to work with him with, and again, it's not a major issue, but to lower that leverage to get into that tackle. You can't hit a guy high. Not these big guys. They can run over you. But that's not, to me, a major issue. And that all has to do with more power in the lower body. Everybody, oh, you got to look great and look like Mr. America. Okay, it looks great on the beach and to the ladies, but you got to get stronger from the waist down, because that's where you build that power and that fuel to get into that tackle. I think he's a mid-second round pick. He's a good player. Doesn't say anything. I mean, you talk about a guy, he says virtually nothing. Because when he first got there, I talked to Babe, and he was like, you don't tell me nothing. You know, I talked to him, and it's yes, sir, no, sir. That's it. You don't say anything. And you talk to teammates. He's not a talker. Man, he can run east-west, and he can get into coverage. Man, and I love that. Those guys are gold today for the NFL. A guy that can match up against a running back, match up against a tight end.
Tight end, yeah.
Gold to have. So he went from a third-round pick to a second-round pick. And so he did help himself out with that 1 year. But he was a different player, because if you watch at North Dakota State, he was up on the line of scrimmage a lot, and he was a guy that was a lot in forward position, get up the field. With LSU and the way they covered, I could see why he was in reverse, because they couldn't. I don't know, sometimes if they could have covered me if I went out for a throw. Man, it was bad, Jack. He fits the mold of what you're looking for in an NFL weak side linebacker. And he's a 3-down guy. Okay, I don't have to take him off the field. Because if I'm a big 250-pound thumper, okay, they got to take me off the field. Obvious passing situations, I'm a liability. And we are situational or hybrid football already. But I like him a lot, Kyle. I really do. And I think he's a guy that's tailor-made for the NFL because of matchup situations with backs and tight ends coming out the backfield. I want to get him stronger in the lower body to improve his open field tackling.
Okay. Bob, any questions?
I want to ask you about one more line. Listen, I love all the linebackers you guys were mentioning, and I was doing my own research when I've been doing these articles. But a guy that I really love too, and I'd love to get your thoughts on him, Mike, is a kid out of North Carolina, Chazz Surratt.
Like Surtain, I first saw him playing basketball. I watched a high school game, and he was playing basketball. And, here was a guy who was a high school quarterback. Mm-hmm. And he made the decision. He went to the coaches, said, Coach, listen, move me to defense. He had played a little bit of defense, but he was really a quarterback. Okay, you can see his athleticism, his ability to run the field. He is still sort of in the learning stages of developing, and you can understand. You played quarterback all that time, and all of a sudden they put you at linebacker. Listen, that's a big change up.
Right.
And so he's still learning some of the finer points of the physicality part of the game and being able to hold his ground if they're running at him, to be able to get around heavy traffic. So that's arm hand use. When you look at him, look like somebody chiseled him out of stone. But my thing is, again, it goes back to Jabril. He's got to get stronger in the lower body to be a better open field tackler. Hand use is huge, because people say, oh, you got to take that blocker on and move him. What? Man, take on a 330-pound guy? And, and I'm 235 pounds? Come on, that ain't happening today. That's old school. Because this ain't your grandpa's NFL. It's to get around blocks and to make a move with your arms and your hands and leverage around it. Mm-hmm. That's what they're teaching you today. So he's got to do a little bit better job there, and he's gotten much better. Now, I talked to Mac about it. He's got much better in the coverage part of the game. He was biting hard sometimes on a move. And, okay, because you've never played that position. Right. And so, okay, I got to cover a guy, okay? And that guy puts on a little move, and so you bite on the initial, and he beats you. He's a guy that I think late in the second round, third round, and is supply and demand. Not a lot of athletes like him. That's where he's going to go. I think he's a top 70s player. because of supply, demand, athleticism. He's a very intelligent young man, very smart. Everybody that's been around him tells you the exact same thing. And here's the thing, he's versatile enough that I could play him inside if I needed to, or play him out on the edge. So man.
So in essence, he's a good developmental guy. Do you think he can start day one? Yes or no?
No. He's not a day one guy. And that's a lot to put on in any rookie. But if you're a first round pick, they want you to play in day one. But did that do any good for Ruiz? I mean, he looked like a rookie last year. I mean, he looked like a rookie. And even Troutman sort of struggled a little bit. Who looked better than anybody, looked as though he was a veteran, was Marquez Callaway.
Yeah.
Marquez was like, man, what? This is the NFL. I got this. This ain't real difficult. I know how to handle this. And it's almost hard to explain why a guy who had played at Tennessee, where the quarterback had played, was horrific. I mean, you didn't know where the ball was. So you can run your route correctly. Okay, but if the guy can't get it to you, you get knocked for, well, he doesn't track the ball well. Track the ball? The quarterback's throwing it all over him. How can I track it?
Yeah.
That's the difference between somebody who watches film and a scout and somebody who's an observer, because it's hard, because you don't know, you just kind of going by, well, he should have done this, but the ball's a different direction. But Marquez looked like, man, okay, guys, that's all I got to do. I got it, And he handled it, the NFL, very well, where what we saw, Zach Bond, Troutman, Ruiz, all struggled with it. They didn't have those rookie camps. And now who knows with the OTAs, the way that's going, you're not going to have that either. And 4 preseason games, okay? I hate to sound like Allen Iverson, but it's true. Man, practice. Practice is one thing. Playing in a game is another, even if it's preseason, because you know why? If I'm up against somebody second or third string guy, that guy's fighting for his life.
Oh, yeah.
Football life. He's fighting for his football life. And so am I, so to speak. And so I know I'm going to get the best of him. One way or another, he's going to give me everything he's got. That's the one thing that I've had so many coaches tell me, I hope they don't do away with it completely. If we can go to 2 preseason games, that would be at least enough that we could get an eye view of a young player in action. He might not be going up against the top guy, but we've seen him in a game. It's different than in a practice. Totally different than practice. Man, practice is practice. I've seen a lot of practice players, they can't play worth a lick in a game. And I've seen it vice versa. Guys, so in practice. Put them in a game, the lights come on.
Just different. Just
Jake
different.
was like that. I'll never forget Jake's first year with the Saints. And Jim Haslett tells me, he says, Mike, I hear you touting Jake Delhomme. Man, he's not good in practice. I was like, Coach, get him in a game. He'll show you something. And Jake was like, man, listen, Jake was like a 60% completion guy in practice. He wasn't real good at it. But you put the lights on in the crowd, and he's competitive, and he's different.
It's different.
And he's different.
It's different on the field when you have all the lights and everybody looking at you, man. Some guys have it and some guys don't.
And you see guys in practice that challenge you, but not all veterans challenge you in practice. Some do, but not all of them. Man, practice, man, we got to do this for this long. Man, I know how to play. Practice is for the unskilled. That's for the rookies and the free agent guys. But it's not for me. I'm a veteran. I played here. And so I do think that was the biggest negative last year of not getting these young players in a game type situation, even if it's preseason, to put them in that competitive spot and getting some game action. And that's why, man, I see what Justin Herbert did with the Chargers, and you like, what?
Yeah.
And he's on a bad team, and look what that dude can do.
Yeah.
And listen, and he had none of this. That goes to show, like, special players. Joe Burrow, okay? But that didn't surprise me, because Joe, man, if you're in a street fight, man, you want Joe Burrow with you. My thing is, if I see a whole bunch of guys, man, listen, Joe, you come with me. Because I know one thing, I might get beat up, but I'm going to get out. I'm going to get out of the fight one way or another if I got Joe.
Yeah.
And, okay, what is Joe playing with? Okay, he's got an offensive line that's bad. Got a couple good receivers, running backs, okay there. But they couldn't protect him. Man, Joe, man, he's as tough as a $2 steak, dude. I mean, you talk about a guy that's competitive.
Yeah.
I don't know in my time frame over 30 years in covering LSU, I've ever seen a guy that competitive. I mean, mano a mano, Jack. I ain't taking it from you, and I'm going to challenge you. And he did. He wasn't afraid of anyone out there.
Well, that's good. That's good, man. Mike, I guess a lot of the guys have been asking, we had a couple of questions right quick. What about the rumors on Dwayne Estridge? Is he like a second or third rounder?
Yeah, man, I like Dwayne a lot. Now, he's a smaller receiver. But, man, he went to the Senior Bowl. And I was reading these things, guys that go to the Senior Bowl for the first or second time. They talking about the Arizona State receiver and all that. Hey, Kadarius Toney and Dwayne Estridge, he left them in the dirt. I mean, these corners were like, what happened? Okay, small college guy. He's not the biggest cat in the world. With 5'9", 180 in that range. You talk about quick. And what I love about him is his speed never stops coming into and out of a cut and a break. It stays the same. Because sometimes fast guys, they almost got to hear the break before they can cut or make a turn. The one thing with Kadarius Toney and Estridge is, man, it's so smooth. Pop, pop, pop. They get out of there and you're like, man, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Because it's so smooth. And I think he's a late second, early third round pick player. He's a top 75 guy. He's caught a lot of passes now in college football. And he was a corner as a junior. He was so good of an athlete that the coaches there put him at corner. He was playing cornerback and receiver. He got hurt. But, man, he's quite an athlete. And in this offense, and Kyle, Bob, both of you guys, I'll say this. One of the things I think will be different this year is that people say, oh, Sean Payton will force Jameis Winston to be Drew Brees. Ain't going to happen. Sean Payton's going to adjust his system to what Jameis does best. He did it for Teddy.
Well, hold on.
Taysom.
Bob,
so he's going to do it for him.
Mike, say that one more time for the people in the rafters. Sean Payton's going to do what?
Sean Payton is not going to make Jameis Winston be Drew Brees like.
Thank you.
He is going to take what he thinks is the best of Jameis and sort of branch out with it, which means one thing we haven't seen in the last couple of years, the deep ball.
Oh.
So tell me which of the guys on this team that's a deep ball guy. Michael Thomas isn't. Marquez Callaway is more of a medium range type receiver.
Yeah, Deontay.
Man, Deontay, I think Sean's a little bit afraid he's getting hurt so much.
Yeah.
You know, how much more can I use him than I can? Traquan, man, listen, he's a tough dude, but he's more of a short intermediate guy. I want that guy in game one who I play. Okay, we saw this a lot last year with Drew. The safeties would walk up to the line of scrimmage. They didn't fear the deep ball. What they feared was Drew with nickel and dime all the way downfield. With Jameis, first thing I'd have him do, first or second play, throw the ball deep. That safety ain't coming back in that box. He got to play coverage now.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, he got to play coverage. So Sean's going to adjust to what Jameis does best. And I'm telling you that Jameis can throw the ball deep. Now, how accurate? Because your accuracy rate once, man, I saw this stat. Joe Clark had showed it to me years ago, that anything beyond 25 yards, the accuracy dips off like over 25% on a passer.
Really?
Because you don't have a high. Now, it's a little different that if you throw kind of a jump ball and that guy goes up and grab it. But to hit that guy in stride and all that, but there's a lot of plays on the ball when it's deep. Okay, because you got a free safety racing over to make a play. But the accuracy drops off quite a bit. I'm telling you, watch what Sean does early in these games this season. He's going to show you that you cannot put that safety and sit him back in that box anymore. You're going to have to play him back. Now, Jameis won't throw that short intermediate route as well as Drew. I don't know anybody who could. But that deep ball, man, scared the bejesus out of you because that changes the score like that. And years ago, even when Drew had it, and they could throw the football deeper when they had Devery and Robert Meacham, I think Sean was a little bit leery. Man, I got to put my defense back out on the field. I don't think he has that fear anymore, because I think he sees, hey, listen, I got some pretty good talent on defense. It's different today than it was, say, like in 2013, 14, 15. It's a different team. And so I'm just telling you, get used to it. Because what you saw with Drew, you may see some concepts, but it's going to be a different style because Sean's going to adjust to Winston.
Gotcha.
Because of that, Mike, do you think, you mentioned Kadarius Toney and Eskridge, two guys I really love. But because of what you just said about the way the Saints receiving core is kind of structured right now, do you see a guy like Toney or Eskridge or a Rondale Moore, a guy like that, a proverbial stretch the field guy coming in?
Man, I'd love to have Toney because he came to our pitch and catch camp down here. He was a dual threat quarterback, but he was a cut above. Man, he take off, man, and then wheels. It's like you see the smoke come out of the back of the wheels when he's running because he was that fast. You could use him on the jet sweeps, on the reverse plays. I can put him in the slot. I can put him outside. He'd be ideal, but I sort of think he's going to be off the board by the time the Saints pick. Eskridge is a little bit different. He is much better suited to be a slot receiver, similar to like Tutu Atwell at Louisville, who's similar. You know, he's a slot receiver. And, man, Tutu can break too now, man. He got some speed. Rondale Moore is interesting. When you watched him at Purdue, how many long passes did he catch?
Not actually a lot. They used him shorter and just all around the field.
Like wide receiver screen. Wide receiver type screens and short throws. And so this 5'7.5", 185, 190 pound guy, man, he's built like a running back. Okay. Yeah. And and so you say, man, I got him. And then he's quick and he gets away. Now he can break the big play, but he wasn't the guy you were really chunking it too deep downfield. And I know Joe would tell me this, and we've had Kurt Warner, Bobby, all of them would talk about, man, the hardest throw is to throw the ball to a small receiver deep downfield. Okay, that football field isn't flat, okay? It's got that hump. So you're sitting back there, and they got people coming at you, and you like a jet fighter pilot. Man, okay, I got to get rid of it. Okay, and you sometimes don't even see if it's caught. So it makes what Tyreek Hill does unbelievable because, he's not a big guy. I mean, Tyreek Hill, when you see him, he's not a really big guy up close and personal. And a lot of his stuff is short, but they throw the deep ball to him quite a bit too now. They want to stretch you with Tyreek, even if they don't hit it. It's the nuclear bomb, so to speak. Okay, I got the threat, and you got to adjust to it. But Rondale's not what I would call a stretch the field guy. He's more of a short intermediate guy, but can make that one move. Up the field he goes. You better catch him because, he's a short, stocky, very powerful guy. I wouldn't necessarily say, I want a 5'7" or 5'8" receiver constantly going deep downfield. I want that big guy because I can see him. You know, you look at Brady, and when he throws the deep ball, he'd much rather throw it to Mike Evans. You know why? I can see Mike. I can see him. I can't see some of the smaller guys because the way the field is, and also you got a rush on you. And so you wait. Okay, it's timing now. Go get it. And they just sling it out there and just get under it. Okay, if I make a bad throw, that smaller receiver is probably not going to beat that defensive back for the ball. But if I got Mike Evans and he's 6'5", horse, you in for quite a tussle to get that ball from him. And that's just part of the game today. It's a lot of jump ball, 50-50 shots. Hope you go get it. Just like if I'm the Steelers, I don't know why they didn't adjust to that with Chase Claypool, who I really like. I think he's a really good player. But he's a 6
at
foot
Notre
4,
Dame.
Man, 6'4.5" receiver.
Yeah.
So I throw it way up there and I say, hey, Chase, go get it. I might not be right on target, but okay, I got a 5'10" corner on you. You 6'4.5". None of us went to Harvard, Yale, Cornell, Brown, Princeton. But even I can figure that one out. That 6'4.5" guy, he's got the huge advantage over a 5'10" corner. Or you know what you get? The flag. You get the pass interference.
Well, let's go and transition to later rounds there. I know you guys talked about Terrace Marshall on the boards. I'm looking at some of the comments. The kid out of Florida, Bateman might be good wide receiver. Let's transition to the mid to latter part of the rounds. Where do you see the Saints picking up some of those gems, those value picks? I mentioned to these guys a guy like Kendrick Green, the offensive lineman out of Illinois. Do you like him? Yeah,
I like him a lot. He has started at both left guard, right guard, center. So he started at 3 positions. He can't play tackle because of his size. But guess what he did as a freshman? He played tackle. Okay, but that wasn't his spot now. Because, you're a 6'2" tackle. Man, leverage-wise, they're getting around you. But he is a really good guard center. He's a good prospect. Kyle, that would be a very good middle round type selection or later round pick. I'll tell you a guy, and he's from here, from where I am, and I think he'd be a great fit player. Puka Williams, the running back from Kansas.
Oh, Puka, that's family there, man. Yeah, Huntsville.
So, man, I've lived here all my life. I've only seen 2 guys like that at running back on the Bayou River Parish. I was a kid, and my dad took me to go watch Second Ward, Terry Rubisky. Terry was a quarterback, but really he was a running back. And, Terry tilted the field when he played. Even though he was a quarterback, he really was a running back. And the other one was Puka. You look at that Hornville team, he brought him to the state championship game. He put that team on his back. Sure did. Puka's the matrix. I mean, you hit him, and he's not a real big guy, but he always falling forward or falling sideways. He catches the ball well. He can return punts and kicks. Did have an off the field issue, okay, and so you're gonna have to, in this day and age, that anything you do like that, man, listen, it's serious, and it should be looked at seriously. And Puka, he got a little bit of athletic arrogance, but you know what? If you can do it, I don't care. That ain't bragging to me if you can do it. But if something would happen to Alvin Kamara, I don't have to change one play. Puka can do the exact same thing. And so who Puka was breaking records for at Kansas? Gale Sayers. Okay, he was breaking Gale's records at Kansas. Wow. All right? Wow. He got squad around him at Kansas. Nothing. Okay? And yet, man, he was making one big play after another. And he couldn't be used as a heavy-duty back in the NFL. But if I was looking for a guy in the later rounds, and he's still there, he's a guy that Sean always talks about a vision. If Kamara's out for a game or two, man, Puka, I got it.
Very confident young man. He's always been confident.
Oh man, listen, that he ain't shy of that. But you know what? If you can do it, it ain't bragging.
That's right. When you got it, things don't come too hard, right?
And had he had his grades right, he would have ended up at either LSU or Alabama. Nick Saban was down here to recruiting. Okay, and so was LSU, but he had some great issues, and he got in at Kansas, and that's what wore him out. I mean, that's why he left early. Listen, I understand why he left and opted out. That's what give him the football 40 times a game, because that's all he had was football.
That's all he had, the talent at Kansas, right? Yeah,
that was it. And so, man, I look at that and say, man, that guy would be a really good fit in this offense, and what he could do. And I always look for some versatility in the later rounds, guys that can play multiple positions.
Yeah. If
it's a safety that has played in the nickel, if it's a tight end who has played as a flex receiver, that's what you're looking for. You kind of get that vision. But what you brought up with Kendrick Green's I think a good analogy of a guy that can play two positions, and he's one of the smartest guys. And this is a pretty good class at center, that he could get sort of overlooked a little bit because he's not this huge guy, okay, at center. But he's a technician. He's been well coached there. He's a leader, and he's smart. And Zach can take care of that. Zach can handle the technical part of things and trying to help him with that. But I think offensive line, running back, secondary, because that's where even in today's world, you see all the hybrid players. Who's the guy I get the most phone calls about from LSU? Jacoby Stevens.
Huh.
You know why? Because Jacoby is not what you want playing deep safety. Okay, he's not a free safety. Can play strong. But you know where I play him? Weak side linebacker. I can get him to 220, 222 easily. He can cover in that short coverage part of the field. He's aggressive. And, you talked to both Dave Aranda and Pelini. They both said, and why they didn't do it, I don't know. We should have blitzed him more. Well, you're the coordinator. Why didn't you? Come on, Jack, you understand. You got the side to do it. And he's really good as a blitzer off the edge. But he's a hybrid player. He's not a pure safety. He's more of a guy up on the line of scrimmage where you can match up in the coverage part of the game, in the blitz. He goes a little bit high to tackling, but that part he can. But here was a guy, what he played as a freshman? He was a receiver at LSU. He started out his LSU career as a freshman. Then he took a look at them guys. We're like, man, got Jamar Chase and Terrace and Justin and Racing. Man, I best play on defense because them guys is pretty good too. So he is a very interesting, along with Racing McMath from LSU, because Racing is a developmental receiver. But when he hits the field the first time, he's a core special teams guy for me. You talk about a guy that can play special teams, off the wall special teams as a gunner. And he's the fastest of the receivers that have played at LSU for the last couple of years. The fastest.
Well, speaking about special teams, I know we brought this up in the last mock draft that we were talking about. Bob and John, you guys will talk about guys who are versatile, probably later rounds. Could the Saints pick up a couple of special teamers who could also fit as helping out in the depth-wise, probably on offense or in the secondary?
Yeah, and that's a great point. And you're talking about LSU defensive backs. Mike, I wanted to ask you about Kerry Vincent as a possible early day 3 pick, or either of those two Panther safeties, Paris Ford or DeMar Hamlin. About their fits in the secondary or on special teams.
Kerry is similar to PJ in that he has started out on the edge in the nickel dime safety. He did all that at LSU. You know where I thought he was best? Just like PJ, dime safety. I would say Kerry goes down as one of the 5 fastest players to ever play at LSU over the last 25 years. Yeah, I mean, you talk about he got some speed. And,
Oh, yeah.
I knew his dad, played at A&M, was with the Saints, passed away a couple of years back with a heart condition. And I think what you talked about early day 3 pick is right. I think that's where he's going to end up going. You know, he doesn't let one bad play affect the next. You know, he's on. Because you know what? In practice, look who you got to go up against.
Right.
You ain't even winning in practice. You know, you can't be there with those guys that they hauling out. So I'd have loved to have seen him play last year, but I understand. I get it. He had some relatives that had come up with COVID. And your dad dies at a young age with a heart condition. We didn't know enough about it at that time, and I get that totally. But I think he's a really good fit because of his versatility. Paris Ford, man, his running skills aren't great in the deep part of the game. Now, he's a get up the field, good in run support. I think would be a really good special teams guy. If I put him deep in safety, I'm going after him. I want to see if he can do it, you know, because I watch Pitt play a lot. And he was good when the ball was thrown in front of him. Over his head, he had some issues. So he would be a guy that I would hope could play special teams. But guy, I'll throw this out at you. I don't know if they'll pick one, but I bet they sign one quickly. This is one of the best years I've ever done punters. I've never had write-ups on as many punters as I did this year.
Huh.
Never.
Do you think they'll bring in somebody to compete with?
Oh, yeah. I think that they're just not going to give this to Gillikin. They're just not going to hand it to him and say, okay, kid, you got it. No, that ain't the way Sean works. Sean got no patience with no kicker. None. So,
well, speaking about that,
Saints special teams coach, I have a friend of mine who coaches at Syracuse. He was over there to watch him punt.
Uh-huh.
And so that special team coach has followed the punters. And so that tells me, I don't know if they'll use a pick on a punter, but I bet they sign one very quickly. That's one that they want to challenge Gillikin for that spot. And they're just not going to let him come to camp and just be the only punter. That ain't happening. Now, that might happen to Will Lutz, but that is not happening to Gillikin. You know, he got nothing on the NFL resume to let you believe that. So that's an area. If they would pick one late, you would say, you know what? You know, it does make sense because Sean puts a lot of emphasis, especially today, in the field position part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of emphasis on there. So punting, and he didn't have to worry about that for a long time with Thomas. It was just a great player here. Again, you know, injuries, father time, ring your doorbell, you know, that's for everybody in any profession. So, but they've followed those punters. That special teams coach, he's followed them. So it does tell you they do have an interest. He wasn't going there just for a fast food restaurant. No.
Yeah. Okay. Let's kind of wrap it up from here, guys. You guys are having some good comments. But Mike, if we look at this, let's kind of recap what you were talking about. You believe the Saints will be aggressive, possibly trading up that sweet spot anywhere from 15 to 22, 23, something to that nature, right?
Because if they're going to go after a corner, you got to position yourself in a spot. Now, here's the thing, is finding a partner. You got to find a tag team partner there. Because everybody, move this, move that. Well, okay, well, what if they don't want to move it?
Right.
Because here's the difference now. If I've got the 20th pick in the draft, and I've looked at players who I think from 17 to like 23. Those are the guys, those 6, 7 players. Now you slide me to 28. You better make it worth my while.
Right.
You know, I'm not just giving you that pick, because now I got to pick a different player that I'm looking at 20. And then at 28, it's going to be different. But if almost like if you go to the racetrack, okay, and you buy a racing farm, there is a racing farm for Sean Payton. there is one. And what he's done in the past, sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. Okay, like last year, he stayed put, but look what he did in the second and the third rounds. He maneuvered stuff all over the board. That's Sean. I mean, you know, that's just the way he's hyper aggressive on draft day. And they can say, well, we did move down. Yeah, you did once or twice, but you know, it wasn't a first round pick deal. You did this with later picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered this year, because of free agency and the cap, would they be more advantageous to keep picks than to trade it? But again, I told this to Matt Moscona. I said, if I go to the track, there's a reason I get the racing form. The racing form tells me they're going to move.
Yeah.
They're going to move.
All right. So a lot of people have been asking about this. Let's say nobody they like, really coveted, is there. Could they fall back, pick up some picks to be able to package some of those lower picks to get more value picks in the second and third round? So they kind of have several picks, second, third, probably fourth round.
Yeah, I could see that, but I think you sort of know the players that'll be there around 28. I think you got a pretty good gauge of the players that'll be there at 28. Now, does somebody get antsy? Okay, Let's say Jacksonville feels like, man, listen, I need a lineman to protect Trevor. I don't know if you'll get there, you know, with my pick. Would you consider moving and I'll kick you in a third round pick? Tag. I can see that. But again, trades are all about, and Mickey's told us this so many times, it's also about finding the partner. It's about finding someone who wants to make that deal with you. Now, who they've always kind of went to the bank with? Patriots.
Patriots, right?
That's been a team that they've cut a lot of deals with.
Vikings
that would give you an early second round, really would give you more of sort of a middle second round. But my thing with Bill, he ain't been too good making selections in the draft. He's a great coach, but man, he's a lousy college talent evaluator. And he may go down as, you know, in my opinion, he's the greatest coach of our generation, NFL wise, the greatest. And especially in the free agency world, where it's commuter world of players and coaches. But look at his draft picks over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And Rick Venturi is a
especially at wide receiver, those wide receivers.
But Rick Venturi is a good friend of mine, and he coached with Bill. And he was like, you know, Bill at the last minute would change his mind. Rick, go scout this player. He said he sent me to Lafayette one time for Orlando Thomas, the safety, when he came out. So he said, man, I'll hop on a jet. I'm in Lafayette. I come back. They never changed the rating on him. But he said it was Bill being Bill. Well, go check it out. He said, you know, that's just the way Belichick is. But he's different this year. He was hyper aggressive in free agency. Does that transform him into being hyper aggressive on draft time and maybe moving up to get a quarterback? You know, so you got to find a partner. We can do this on here, but you got to find a partner. It's easy for us to do it. It's much harder in the NFL to do it.
All right. Here's a question that has been kicked around. Is there anybody on the Saints squad on draft day that's tradable?
Everybody's tradable. It depends on what you get back. You know, because a lot of people, oh, let's trade Marcus Davenport. My thing is, okay, what are you going to get back in return? Look what you gave up to get him.
Get him, right.
Come on. I mean, that doesn't make any sense unless you're getting a tremendous amount back. At one time, you had built up all that depth along the defensive line, but that's not there anymore either. Offensive line, you don't have that either. You don't have it at wide receiver. You don't have it at tight end. You don't have it at quarterback. You don't have it at running back. So what are you going to deal off? Okay? At this point. I don't see that happening. Sean is much more open to deal future picks than he is players. That Bob, I think, would agree on that. He's done that. That's been part of his history. He's not afraid to deal you a pick next year or whatever to get the guy he wants. And he's one of the few guys, head coaching wise, that, you know, he's not worried about 2022. You know, he's worried about winning today. Okay. And I told him a comment that Joe Clark used to say. He coached for Paul Brown. He played for Paul. He was a backup quarterback to Otto Graham, and he played there. And then he became a coach and a scout. And Paul Brown said, the only championship you can win is the one you're playing for this year. And he said, it always stuck in my mind. I told it to Sean. He's like, man, that's a great line. So I think he's used it a couple of times since, but, you know, nobody, you know, reinvented the wheel on that. But because Paul had to hear it from somebody else. You know, that wasn't Paul's idea either. But it makes sense that you can only win the championship that you're playing for that year. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you got to sacrifice. That's like if you go look for a home, okay, and I'm just going to throw you have a budget of $400,000. But you see a house worth $525,000, perfect for you. Aren't you going to think about, man, you know what? I'm going to stretch it. You know, I got to do what I got to do, but that's what I want. We do that in a car, homes, everything else. People say, oh, I never get off my budget. Man, come on. You'd blow the circuits out if I put you on the light in the detective machine. Because we all do it. You know, we all buy things or do things that maybe overcost because we like them, and at that moment we want it. Okay, coaches are no different. They the exact same way with it. So future picks, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked.
All right.
And a lot of teams today would rather the future pick than this year because they think they'll have a better read of the player in 2022 than they have in 2021. Because, you know, not having the combine, not having certain features that you would normally have in a draft class. And so I've had a number of people tell me in the league, I would much rather the 2022 pick than 2021. And they think that it cuts off at a certain time, that once you get into the 5th round, midway into it, you're off Mount Everest.
Gotcha. All right. Mike, thank you so much, man. Really do appreciate
you guys. Appreciate it.
Bob, tell everybody how they can follow you on the World Wide Web.
Oh, first of all, Mike, I mean, I consider you a mentor of mine. Thank you so much for all the terrific work that you do throughout, the nation, and particularly New Orleans Saints fans, and for me individually. I have nothing but love and ultimate respect for you. So, so thank you so much. And
y'all the young generation of writers. I'm almost middle-aged right now.
I'm not all that far behind you, though.
We're almost middle-aged.
Hey, Mike, I'm not too far behind you either, man. So anyway,
well, I know that's why I said it.
I know.
No, listen, I don't act like my age, and I cut up way too much for my age. But listen, you got to stay young, and you got to change with the times. That's just the way the world is. If you stay stuck in neutral, you live in a miserable life today. I mean, you got to change. And so to see the young guys like Bob and John and some of the other guys on the site, man, I love to see that because I was y'all once, they didn't have this, but I was once in that spot, where it was young for me and I had another job and was doing well there. But man, I love the draft and talent evaluation, so that's why I got involved with it. But you guys, the baton will be handed, and I'll be on the French Riviera. In the Mediterranean, I'll be in Paris.
Mike, I'll be carrying your bags, man.
Yeah,
I'll be carrying your bags.
Look, them dudes working hard out there, man. I'm over here in Cabo, soaking it up for 2 weeks.
I hear you, man. Well, look, tell everybody, Mike, how they can follow you.
MikeDetillier.com, probably the best thing on that. And listen, I do enough shows. This is my 12th today. I got 11 tomorrow.
Hardest working man on the Bayou.
Yeah. Well, man, listen, I never say that because my dad, if he was alive, he'd be upset if I said I was working hard. Man, who's working hard? You doing construction work, or are you working outside in that heat and that cool noon? That's hard work. Or you a single mom with a couple kids? Man, that's
real hard work. Yeah.
So what I do, man, I'm in the toy department of life. And that's how I've always looked at it. I'm in the toy department of life. Now, it means a lot to people, because, I got 2 grandkids. I'll walk with them in the toy department. Man, they got a bunch of grown people walking around. I'm like, wait a minute. You older than me. What you doing walking around here? Now, they may be buying something for the grandkids, but sometimes I think you just sort of stroll through memory lane, too.
Yeah. Look, that's happened to me on a couple of occasions in Walmart, right?
It happened to all of us. Listen, we all go through that little walk.
Yeah,
Same
man.
thing in electronics. Man, you walk in there and see the different TVs and all the electronic stuff and all that. Man, it's like, man, what has this changed since I was a kid? Has this changed in the last 5 years? For all of us. You walk in, you see that. It's amazing, the electronic part of the world. It's the same thing like in medical science. People ask me, what's the biggest change? It's not the athlete, it's the medical. How guys that would have a career-ending injury today, go through surgery, man, and they back up and rolling in a few weeks. And you like, what in the, it's amazing.
Stay right there. Quan Alexander has been doing fantastic down in Miami with Dr. Reed. You saw some of those workouts. Do you think there's a chance? And I know that a lot of people have asked this question of us. Is there a chance he re-signs with the Saints?
I think there's a good chance he will. I think he likes being here. He understands the defense very well. It could be on a deal of sort of prove it, that you can stay healthy and you can get maybe a better deal later on. Quan was a great fit, man. When he went down, and I saw what happened, and I knew it immediately because I've seen those Achilles, and that's how it goes, man. That thing rolls up like a Venetian blind up on your back, and it's crazy because you feel it, and it's like, man, let me try to put a little weight on it, and it's like you've been shot, and so I think there's a good chance he comes back. And the one thing I do know, it's a lot cheaper to live in Louisiana than it is in California.
So true.
A lot cheaper than that. Now, he was in Florida. You got no state tax. That's pretty sweet as far as I'm concerned. But I think there's a good chance. And Achilles at one time was a career killer. I mean, that was it. You got it. You out the game. Not today. Look, Suggs came back in like 5 months from that injury and played. I mean, it's amazing today. Guys, I'm going to just be honest. That's been the biggest change for me in 36 years to see the recovery. Knees, shoulders, Achilles, ankle, broken bones that would have knocked a guy out and his career is over. And yet today, he moves on. And his dedication, too, because like growing up, that guy had a part-time job. Okay, he wasn't just concentrating on rehab, and he was trying to put money in his pocket.
On his pocket, yeah. Right.
And
look,
so,
man.
But today's different. Today's totally different. And I think Quan's a great athlete, can come back from it. Very dedicated young man. I'd love to see him back in the black and gold.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I remember my dad worked with Bob Pollard in the off
Okay.
season. My dad was a juvenile probation officer, and he and Bob shared an office when Bob was on his off season. But you look at a lot of these guys today. You look at Quan. You look at these guys who have a lot of talent and how they're rebounding. I think his energy level and just the chemistry that he and Davis were able to get immediately really set the tone for the Saints defense last season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. And, he's still a young man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When you get old, and this is no knock on Drew, but okay, as you get older, it takes longer to rehab.
Right.
It takes longer to come back from an injury. And you can try to play through it, but you're not the same. And Bobby always has the line to me, Mike, man, when I was first playing, Mike, listen. When I was first playing, man, like Monday was hard to get out of bed, but I was good for Tuesday. Played 4 or 5 years, man. I could recover by Wednesday. Man, at the end, I was never recovered. Man, I get up Saturday still hurting from the injury I had this Sunday. And so, okay, your body's telling you, hey, this ain't for the meek. A lot of people, that ain't nothing to play pro football the way they are today. But you see these guys that can run that fast and that strong, you taking some big time hits. And this ain't two-hand touch in your backyard. They coming for you. And now with 17 games is going to be who can survive that.
Yeah.
Because that extra game, and eventually, guys, we're going to live long enough. We're going to see 18. I mean, that's the big push from the networks to go 18.
Yeah, what's kind of odd? They did not up the roster as a result.
Come on, man. Owners didn't make their money by giving it out. Come on, you didn't become a billionaire by handing cash out.
I was baiting you into that, Mike.
No, I'm just telling you. They're not their Red Cross. They're not out handing you money. They're not American Red Cross. They're not handing you money. They got their money because they saved it.
They saved their money. That's right.
Especially older people, I think once you get a certain age, you become a hoarder for money. You think you're going to take that with you. You're going to find out you don't. But, man, I had a grandpa like that. He thought he could take his money with him. My grandma, you got to spend that money. Oh, no, I got to keep that. No, he really thought he could take it with him. You can't. Now, younger people are a little bit different. They understand because they made it so quick. Okay? You got a 45 or 48-year-old billionaire. He didn't do that over 20 years. He did that quick. But a lot of the owners today in this league, they're over 65 years old. They made it a different way. And it's a different generation of looking at money. And so, they ain't handing out no money, nothing extra and nothing. So that don't surprise me one bit. Not at all. Because last year they had to bend, okay? They had to bend with the roster. Now what? Hey, we ain't bending for nothing. We're not bending. We ain't bending for that. We on our own now.
No, Donald's still 53-man roster, man. Okay. Mike, thank you so much. On draft night, what you going to be doing, man? Are you going to be at the Silver Slipper? What's happening?
No. They don't let us out of custody. So we in studio. No, Abear and I would like to go, believe me. But no, we in custody. We at WWL Studios from 6 to midnight Thursday, 6 to midnight Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. for me Saturday. Now, Abear, he don't have to come in until 2:30. He need his beauty rest. So he needs to get that extra sleep. But he don't come in until 2:30 on Saturday. Mike, I got to get more rest. I don't have your energy to do that. So, yeah, we'll be on around the clock and giving them coverage of the draft. And, last year we were all fixing the pitch then. We was doing this at Zach's condo. Me, him, and Deuce, and Bobby and Christian were somewhere else. And so we doing it. And Deuce was like, man, it's all over for us. So, yeah, we go to commercial break. I look up on the screen. Saints up. I'm like, okay, guys, we back in business. And when they showed Tommy Stevens, and Deuce and I look at one another. There ain't no way they're picking him at quarterback, huh? That's not because we saw him throw it up. We knew that wasn't your traditional quarterback with Stevens. But so you never know with Sean that he thought he found him a Taysom Hill guy with Tommy Stevens, and he goes up and gets him. But yeah, we thought it was over, and we were gonna get food and everything out, man. We were ready to kind of pack it in, and then all of a sudden, right when we get to the commercial, I saw Saints selection, and I'm like, well, that means we get extended, boys. We got a little bit more time here. And Zach was like, no, we don't have no more picks. I said, no, turn around. We do have a pick now. So yeah, not
all
coverage,
right,
not coverage.
good stuff as always. Look, that's Mike Detillier. Go to MikeDetillier.com. You can catch Bob Rose at Bobby R 2613 on Twitter. And I'm Kyle T. Mosley, and you can check us out at Saints News on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Have a great night. Let's have a great draft, and who dat, baby? Take care.